Hey, welcome to a very special edition of Local Focus. I'm your host, Sebastian Noel. We are going to preview the basketball season. It's just underway. A couple of games already under our belt, but you know, sometimes the schedule, what it is, we're going to do a season preview right now. We're going to break it into two parts. We're going to break down some teams, and then we're going to go through individual players. And really, there's only one guy that could join me for this. His basketball resume, unrivaled in the city. Whenever I need to talk hoops with anybody, this is the guy I call. Former coach at Cibola, UNM, Baylor, Brian O'Neill, and my friend Brian O'Neill. You're the guy, right? You're the basketball guy?
You say I am, right?
Well, I mean...
If you say I am, I am.
You're hardly ever wrong.
Okay.
So we'll go into teams first, because I figured, a coach is going to want to talk about teams first, right?
Yep.
And I know this happened a week ago already, but for our old friend Austin, I want to start with his La Cueva Bears.
Yeah, and speaking of Austin, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the impact he had on my life and my opportunity to work with him on ESPN radio through the years, and what a bright light and shining light he was in my life, and I know you feel the same about how he's impacted you as well.
Absolutely. So he'll be watching over his Bears. How good can that team be this year?
I think they can be really good. I think they have a good group of kids back. It's something that I don't think Frank Castillo's had in the past few years, where he's had a good 3 or 4 solid players returning. They made it to the state championships last year and lost in the first round to a really good Cleveland team who they just were really just didn't match up well with, especially off the dribble. And defensively, I think Cleveland was able to lock them down. I think they've had some time to grow. And I look to them to really make a run at winning a district championship in their district.
Derek Isles, obviously the rumors or the words I'm hearing out of there are that he won't be back till around Christmas time. So, I mean, obviously they're staying afloat now. A little bit of a difficult schedule to start the season. Do they have enough pieces around him? I love Micah Cooper, what he does. Mm-hmm. He can defend. He can he can run the point. They have a sophomore in Seward that can shoot a little bit. What weaknesses do you see in that team?
Well, I think the injury to Isles is it could be a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because it's going to force La Cueva to find some other guys that can play and do some things. And I think Derek coming back, I expect him to come back healthy and be as impactful as he was before he was injured. So I think the injury, nobody wants a player to be injured, so they might drop a couple games here or there, but I do think it's going to improve their roster. I think the biggest question about La Cueva has always been how they're going to be able to stop people defensively. They like to play up and down and like to score points, and a lot of times you have to score in order to beat them. But I think one thing that they need to improve on, if they want to make that next step and get to quarterfinals, semifinals, and possibly a state championship game, is to lock down defensively and become a better basketball team on that end of the court.
Are they tough enough to defend at a high level? Because that would be maybe a knock that I've heard, is that maybe they're a little soft defensively.
Well, I think they need to be challenged, and I think that's what the coaching staff will probably be doing at La Cueva this year, is challenging them, see if they can be tough enough to be able to beat good teams and good players and play for those 4 quarters. Because you can see it in spurts, and but I think from the first quarter through the fourth quarter has yet to be seen.
Offensively, are they doing enough with Jashawn Lowry? It seems like he could be a real Trey Watson impact player, same body type, same game type, but La Cueva seems like a very perimeter-oriented team.
Well, I thought last year, towards the end of the year, he really started to develop, and he's a football player, And sometimes it takes football players, a while to get their legs back and get playing. And it took him a little longer last year than I'd anticipated. If he can smooth and get himself in basketball shape and be ready to play, a little bit sooner than last year, I think that he becomes a force inside. And I think that's a player who does need to see the ball.
A wild card may be the freshman Exodus Ayers, who's already gotten a lot of playing time early in the season, and he's making a difference. We've seen how athletic he is. We've seen his AYBL here on Proview Networks. We've seen his Yaffle, obviously, but Exodus Ayers is already playing a lot of minutes at the varsity level as a freshman.
Yeah, well, and normally, like I said, in order for a kid as a freshman to play on varsity, they got to show something in practice. They got to show something consistently, and a lot of it, the main thing is you want to see is that confidence. Do they belong? They feel like they belong. A lot of it, like Jaquan Hill last year. And I know we'll get to Volcano Vista, but that kid belonged last year, and he fit the mold for that team, and he played without any hesitation. So I think that's going to be the key.
Let's stay in the district then and talk about the Eagles. El Dorado, obviously they lost a lot at the guard position. They have Daraje Agbayosi coming back, who I think's been phenomenal and can be so much more, depending on how many more touches he gets. What do you think of the Eagles?
Well, I think it's all going to be determined with their backcourt. You talked about Agbayosi and his growth and his improvement last year was through the roof, and then his summer that he had this year, from what everybody had told me, was just outstanding. So I think it's going to be that backcourt that is going to have to make the difference this year for them. They lost so much from last year, and so they're young and inexperienced, and they're going to be there's going to be a lot of defenses thrown at these guys, a lot of different types of traps, pressures, just to test them, and how they respond to that is going to be key.
They've started obviously well. They got off to a 6-0 start against a mixed bag of opponents, I would say. But the backcourt is, you can tell that's the question. Is the backcourt going to develop to the level of a Tyler Quintana, of a Cam Valencia, of Domina Lovato, his younger brothers there? At times, it looks like they can handle the load offensively, but defensively, I think Coach Roy Sanchez is still looking for some defense. I know when I talked to him, he wasn't happy with how they're playing, even though they're undefeated, but that's typical Roy.
Yep.
But how hard is it to develop a backcourt and backcourt chemistry?
Well, like you said, they're 6-0 right now, so every one of these games is helping them a ton. And so, and they're going to continue to grow and get more comfortable. So, if you're going to get a piece of them and you're going to start picking at them, it better be now, because if you start thinking that things are going to really start showing up in February and late February, early March, they're not. Those kids are going to become adjusted. If you're in that district, if you're any of the Piedra Vista, the Farmington, West Mesa, the Cuevas of the world, you want to jump on these guys real early in that schedule before they mature even more. But to teach those backcourt players, just about decision making, what's the right things to be doing, and then at the same time trying to get them to keep up speed-wise defensively, as you talked about. They're throwing a lot at them.
They had, I think, an undefeated or a one-loss JV team, so a lot of those kids moved up together. They're used to winning. I know Tyler Heckroth, some of those younger players. They're skilled players, obviously. It seems like they're playing pretty fast offensively right now. They really like to get up and down. If that thing gets into a district play half court, and he's got Agbayosi, he's got Javon Jefferson, do you think we see a lot more structured half court El Dorado offense, some high-low, stuff like that, or do you think they're going to keep playing like this?
Well, I think this is how Roy wants to play, and I think that's how his JV players play that are coming up. So I don't anticipate him, switching the style of play, because I know he wants to play a certain way. I do think though that he'll have some sets in there, off dead ball situations where he'll make sure and get the ball where he wants. But if he can keep the game going up tempo, playing hard, playing fast, I think that's what he wants to do.
So before we go to break, is there a team in that district that could surprise anyone, or are those the two teams we're really looking at in that district?
I think they are. I spoke to you earlier. I thought West Mesa had a nice little nucleus of kids with obviously with Eloy Medina coming back, and they're a well coached team. I just they're a team I think that that you can't look past if you're El Dorado La Cueva. I don't think the Farmington and Piedra Vista can clip either one of those teams, but I think that the team you got to be real careful of, because they're going to be wary. La Cueva and El Dorado are going to be very wary of each other. Is don't slip up against West Mesa, because those are 2 games against El Dorado, 2 against La Cueva, that if they can get one of you guys one of those games, it could cost you a district championship.
You run into them on a night where Eloy Medina can't miss, Maybe they get contributions from someone else,
Yep.
a Kiembe or someone off the bench. You never know who else is going to contribute. So a team that's maybe capable of winning a game, stealing one, but probably not the district, right?
Yeah, and that's in terms of they're maybe playing a little bit of a spoiler role here, but that's the one team I think for obviously La Cueva and El Dorado that they can't really look past.
Now, could they do enough damage pre-district? West Mesa is that we're talking about now. Can they do enough damage in their pre-district schedule to get into the tournament?
Well, the big win was against Trisco, and then they've had some tough losses since. But they have some games coming up, and here in the next few weeks against they're going to be some teams that I think that they'll be playing against that will possibly be district champs, and they have to perform well in the Metro tournament as well. I think that's going to be key. If they don't put together a resume prior to that district, no, they're not going to be able to.
And obviously, they have to root for a Trisco to win that district.
That's going to help them a ton.
Right. So if you had to pick a winner there in that district, where would you lean?
I'm going to lean with La Cueva because of experience. I think they're going to have you're going to have your normal La Cueva El Dorado battle, but I think this year might be the year where La Cueva's experience and like I said, if there's some key players that are back, with Micah Cooper, and you talked about the Lowry inside, and when they get Isles back, these are key people, and I think having those guys back might just outnumber what La Cueva, El Dorado has coming back.
Right. I think when things are so evenly matched, I always lean towards the team that has the best player on the floor. And the best player on the floor in those games is going to be Daraje Agbayosi. So I think I kind of lean towards El Dorado, but it's going to be close. We'll take our first time out. We'll move into another district when we come back.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
All right, we're back with Brian O'Neill here. We're going through our season preview for basketball, and I want to move now, before we get accused of northern bias, to the out-of-town teams.
Yeah, let's do it.
And I think that conversation, in my opinion, has to start with the Santa Fe Demons. What do you think?
Well, after watching Las Cruces play, just recently, I would have to say, they've got to be part of the conversation as well. But with, with J.B. White and what's been talked about with him in the offseason and his commitment, obviously, to UNM, not having him last year, and them still making it to the state championship, speaks volumes to that team. So I think, they're definitely a team right now that has caught the attention of most coaches around the state of New Mexico.
And obviously they have a lot of pieces coming back with DeSaro and Garcia, Cruz Martinez, and I think what they showed us in the tournament is that they can really give some teams nightmares with the way they defend, right?
Well, they defend outstanding. They really pressure the ball, take away passing lanes. Their help side defense is terrific. But I think what really impressed me most about them was their ability on offense to control the ball and take good shots. And they play quick, they play fast, but they don't force things. So they're the type of team that'll push the ball down the court. They don't have no shot. They're rotating the ball. Everything's fast, and then they'll wait to get the shot they want. And again, they did that all last year, without having an inside presence. Now you talked about the guard play that they have coming back, and now they have the big guy inside who can not only just play inside, can also pop out and hit some shots.
So in hindsight, is losing JB last year, is that going to prove to be a pretty beneficial thing, do you think, for the rest of this team?
Well, I think they've all grown because of it, and I think the other thing they've grown is in confidence. I think they've proven that they know how to win without him. Now with him, they got him back. They're saying, hey, listen, this is just an added piece of this puzzle. We feel good about what we can do without you. Now that we have you, look out.
You mentioned the Dogs. Talk about Las Cruces. I mean, they come in here. We get that matchup with Volcano Vista that we were all looking forward to. I think you could argue that in their starting lineup, they have 3 of the top 15 players in the state,
Yep.
20 maybe. I don't
Yep.
know. I don't know how you want to do. I love Gonzalo Corbalon, but these are the questions I've been dying to ask you. First of all, is an 8-man roster enough? Right.
Yep.
And you've got 8 guys, and Coach Benjamin, the lone warrior on the bench there, no assistant coaches. So talk about all those things, not only the roster size, but you coached. Could you imagine doing it solo without assistants?
Yeah, well, it's interesting how he goes about things, and I'll give those kids credit. They came up here and they they had a hell of a game with Volcano Vista, and here's the deal: is it's a lot tougher for them to do what they had to do than was for Volcano Vista. It's basically a home game for Volcano. These guys come up to travel, they're staying in the hotel, and they're doing all these things, and like I said, they come here with 8 guys basically. And they battled hard, but I would tell you, you said I think they might have 3 of the top 12 kids in the state. I think those kids are really good, and it's one of those situations where I think they're just only going to grow from this experience they had in the academy tournament.
Right. I gave him an extra guy. This roster actually only has 7. So
Yeah, I think they had 8 on the bench
yeah.
during the tournament.
I mean, foul trouble, an up and down game maybe with fatigue. I mean, there's a lot of things that could go wrong for that team, right?
Yeah, well, as a coach, you feel if you have 7 or 8 guys, if you need like a solid 7, and you hope to have a solid 8. But if you can have a solid 7, that's kind of what you want. But yeah, at some point, you in high school and the way you start getting different officiating and people call it different. Next thing you know, you get guys who are going to the bench pretty early in the game, and you better have that rotation in. But I think one thing that they showed me was they can play different styles of basketball. They can play a slow down game. They will speed you up if they have to. So I think they're pretty versatile, in that regard.
Do they have a weakness as far as on the floor is concerned, or is their weakness maybe just the lack of depth?
What jumps out at me, I think more than anything, is if they become too one-dimensional, and so where they you can start taking away some stuff from them, and then to see if they can adjust to it. I think really in order to beat Las Cruces, you have to make it a half-court game.
Right.
You can't go up and down with them. And I think that's one thing that they might struggle at is playing maybe defense in the half court for long periods of time. That's where I thought that Volcano Vista kind of got them, was able to spread them out, take them off the dribble, and they were either drawing a foul or getting to the basket most of that second half.
Another Southern team that has to be mentioned is obviously Oñate. Anytime you have Ricky Lujan, one of the top 5 players in the state, in my opinion, and I know you share that, you have to be mentioned. They have Jordi Moreno as well. Talk about the advantages you have when you have a point guard like a Ricky Lujan, who every night is pretty much going to be the best player on the floor.
Yeah, and I was impressed with him when I saw him in the state tournament last year. He didn't have a great game, but you could just look at his ability and what he could do. I thought the biggest criticism I had toward Ricky was that I thought he was a little bit soft in dealing with tough defense. And I don't think he responded too well to it. And I thought that they ran a lot of stuff for him that they didn't have any counters for. They ran him off a lot of ball screens, and he started becoming doubled and having to get the ball out of his hands and trapped and so forth. And he didn't respond too well to that. So hopefully he's been able to grow a little bit and understand things. And also the coaching staff has been able to make some adjustments to free him up so he can do a few more things.
Sleeper possibility with Clovis. Obviously, they have Bryce Cabledew, who really knows how to use that huge frame.
Yep.
We only saw him one game at the Academy tournament, and then he was off for his official visit for football at San Diego State. But that's a pretty athletic team. They got some nice pieces. What do you make of Clovis?
I like their coach. I know that. I like what he does. I like what he's about. I liked him as a player, and I think he's doing a terrific job there. And I think he's building that program. I expect to see them here in the pit this year to make it to the quarterfinals at least. They're a type of team that's, again, they're going to grow as well and they're going to get better. But I think they have a guy that's coaching them right now that's going to just really help to maintain the focus of that basketball team and teach them what winning's about. He's won as a player and he's won as a coach, and I think he's starting to bring that now to Clovis. Finally, if you need a sleeper, I would present to you Capital. Not a lot of people talking about them. Yep.
They beat Santa Fe in the final of the Al Armendariz tournament. Ben Gomez is another coach that's been there before. Talking about Capital.
Well, I love Ben Gomez. I mean, he's been around forever, and his teams are always competitive. And when he doesn't have talent, he's still there. His teams are there, and when he does have talent, they usually win. So now you're talking about another team from Santa Fe that knocks off Santa Fe High in the championship of their tournament, loses them a week prior. So I expect big things.
Yeah, I mean, Capital's off to a great start. They have TJ Sanchez back, Chano Herrera, Seth Arroyos put back in the starting rotation. I mean, there's not a lot of people talking about Capital, but that's another team that could make some noise. I know Coach Cole said, hey, don't forget about our neighbors, because he's very high on Capital as well.
Yeah, but he knows them as well as anybody.
We'll take a break, be right back.
Whoa.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rawlins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Calling all football players, are you looking to develop your skills this season? It's never too late or too early to put in the work. Coach Carl Barrere and the Air Barrere program at 8 Grady's Performance Center provide comprehensive position training for aspiring football players at all levels. Whether you're looking to increase your speed, gain strength, or hone your skill, we train all positions with a team of experienced coaches who know what it takes to succeed at all levels from Yaffle to college. Check us out at 8gradys.com to learn more and sign up for training today.
All right, we're back with Brian O'Neill here, a season preview for basketball. We've kind of hit the out-of-town schools, so let's go back into town, and let's start with the defending champs, the Trisco.
Well, it was funny because I was talking to you at the Academy tournament. You look at Trisco, and you just see their presence, and it's not real intimidating. But then when you get them on the court, they play in a fashion that's just hard to defend and hard to beat. I expect them to be right there in the middle of things in their district, tough district we know about, and but they're gonna have to find a way to make up for some inside presence that they had last year. Their guard play, obviously, what they had with Rivas and Ramos, the whole crew, they can score on you, but I think rebounding and defending inside is going to be an issue for them this year.
Yeah, you mentioned the rebounding and defense that they've lost. Obviously, they're going to shoot it well enough to beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, right?
Yep.
But if they're going up against a really good team, are they going to be able to shoot themselves out of maybe getting out rebounded by 15 boards a night?
Yeah, and that's what they're up against, and obviously a kid like Supton who they've lost, he was a great defender, but he could rebound as well from the wing, and so they're gonna have to be trying to find some ways to compensate when they play bigger opponents, and they're gonna in their district they're gonna be facing some pretty big teams.
Now I do think Malachi Crawford has the potential to continue to develop throughout the year. So he'll give them that presence inside. I think offensively, you can tell that he's not used to being maybe the option offensively.
Yeah.
So when they do get it into him, he sometimes is not comfortable finishing. But I notice he runs the floor well. He crashes the boards. They have a sophomore that's 6'4", and Colby Wade, that I know Coach Ortega is going to need him to come along a little bit. But, I mean, you can't really coach size, so it's something that they're definitely lacking, right?
And I think, if I was coaching that team, if I was coaching that team, I'd have 2 state championships for one. But if I was coaching, that team, I think I would put a lot of pressure on my seniors and my experienced players to get them involved. It's going to be up to them to get those kids comfortable. And if those players around them that have all that experience don't get them comfortable, I don't know if the labor will become comfortable. So that's what they're going to have to do from a leadership standpoint. And
obviously, anytime you have Josiah Ramos.
Yep.
You like your chances, right?
Well, I mean, but a guy that can go get 30 any night, you know what I mean? And just he's been doing this now for 2 straight years. You got to like your chances. And a guy that competes at his level, there's nobody who does it better. So when you have him in your locker room before the game and you're getting your team ready, and again you're that coach, you feel pretty good about your chances.
Stay in that district, and we talk about Volcano Vista. Obviously, a great start for the Hawks. It's been a difficult schedule. It hasn't mattered. Champs of the Armijo tournament at Academy there. Dion Battle's been playing lights out. He had 30 in the opening round. He was the tournament's most valuable player. I love Taryn Dickey early on. Coach Brown said there maybe he doesn't have that size, but I thought Taryn's been fantastic to start the season. The other pieces, Valdez, Cunningham, it looks like that's a team that's ready to wear that number one tag for a lot of the year.
Yeah, I think this is the team that Greg is probably gonna be real comfortable coaching. I know he loves the guard play. Oh, he loves having good guard play, and I think he has 4 or 5 guys that can handle the ball as good as anybody in the city. And what I mean by that is that they can take you off the dribble and get to the basket, and so that makes them really difficult to defend, especially when they want to spread you out. And then, as you talked about Dickey, here was a kid last year who was playing, and everybody said, well, he's too thin. I don't know if he belongs being playing yet. He's a little bit, uncoordinated at times or whatever. Well, let me just tell you, all that experience that he had last year, he's developed into a nice player, and he's a hard matchup. He's a guy at his size. If he's matched up against somebody near his size, he can go off the dribble and take him to the basket. And if you're undersized, he'll post you up, and he's got a great deal of length, and he makes his free throws.
And then you go to the academy tournament, and Greg Brown's getting 2 or 3 3-pointers out of his 8th and 9th guy, Ian Chavez. I mean, the depth is still there too, isn't it?
And it definitely is. And then, like you talked about, he's getting those 3-pointers because they're wide open shots that are being created by these guys that can go off the dribble. And at some point, you let them go to the basket, or you got to come in and help. And if you come in and help, they play together so well. They find the open guy, and then they have confidence to make those shots.
Let's stay in the district and talk about the Cleveland Storm. I know you and I, huge Trey Watson guys.
Yep.
Especially it seems like when the state tournament starts, Watson's at his best. Now they have Dorian Lewis starting point guard. Obviously Nathan Hasbury. What do you like about Cleveland? What are some weaknesses maybe there?
Love Hasbury. I thought he was really developing a lot last year. You spoke about Watson. Tremendous inside force. I think this year, I thought last year at times they maybe didn't get the ball inside enough when they played, and it hurt him. I think down the stretch in some big games, just getting him the ball. But yeah, this is a team right now for the last 3 or 4 years that has just been just beating people left and right and playing everybody in the state and winning a lot of games and getting having a presence in the state tournament. I think they're gonna be the team to beat this year in that district. Next to Volcano Vista, but I also believe that they're a team right now that's going to be a little bit more determined to try to prove that they can win without some of the guys that they lost in the last couple of years.
I thought maybe heading into the year that guard play would be their problem, and I know I talked to you about that earlier, but having watched Evan Gonzalez earlier in the season, I was really impressed with his leadership and his ball handling capabilities. Now enter Dorian Lewis. Now all of a sudden you have 2 very capable point guards to go with Watson and to go with Hasbury. And to me, that changes the entire conversation about Cleveland.
And one thing about Cleveland, like the last couple of years, they played so many kids. They always play people, and people are like, God, why are they playing so many? Because they have good players, and they were trying to get everybody in. I think now that his bench is maybe a little bit shortened, I think it might help Sean Menace a little bit and his rotations and getting guys in and kind of finding that seven guys that are going to be key players for him. Because I think last year they were almost going like 9-10 deep, and it kind of gets a little bit nerve-wracking when you're coaching like that because you're trying to figure out who's a hot hand for tonight, right. Who do we have in, and then that can kind of take away your rhythm and so forth. So I anticipate them still playing their style, but having a little bit of a shorter bench and being a little bit more impactful. And
they have their own kind of DeMarcus Sutphin guy that does all the dirty work. They have Aiden Moreno, and I know most coaches are pretty high on that guy.
Yeah, and because he'll get after you, like you talked about it. And when you have a guy that cares more about what he does on the defensive end of the court and his aggressiveness than he does about putting balls in the basket, that's kind of special.
Lastly, we're running short on time, but is Rio Rancho in that conversation this year?
Oh, they have to be. Yeah, they're definitely in the conversation, and they've had a nice start to their season. It's going to be, like I said, that's going to be a juggernaut again with Volcano Vista, Cleveland, Rio Rancho, and Frisco. It'll be a battle every night in, night out.
The last thing before we go, Ryan, is we'll leave 5A for a second, but one of the best basketball districts in the city is at the 4A level with Highland, with Valley, with Del Norte, with Bernalillo, with Hope Christian, and Academy's better. But is Valley that much better than those other teams?
I don't know that for sure. I know Valley had a nice run last year, but I've seen Hope. I think they've improved. I like the way Bernalillo played. Bernalillo, I think, beat Valley twice last year, and they look like they have a nice team. And we've talked about Highland, Del Norte. I think some of those teams might be catching up to Valley. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk for Valley this year.
Oh, it'll be something to watch. In part 2 of our season preview, we'll switch to individuals. Brian and I will break down some of the best and most talented players in the state, and that will be next week in part 2 of our season preview.